Okay. With Wesley Novak.
Yes, sir.
And we're doing a job interview for a territory manager, and you mentioned it was okay that we record that, right? Perfect. Now, before we get going, if you could just take us through your work experience, like you've got listed here on the resume.
Okay. Like I mentioned to Alan here, I had spent a good part of my professional career in the beer beverage industry. Starting out from ground zero there, from working in warehouse, working on the trucks, on up to doing route sales, then on up to direct sales, and then into sales, period. And I did that for a miller distributor for almost 10 years. And then I had the opportunity to go and get hired on at Anheuser-Busch affiliate that was actually the oldest and one of the biggest distributors in the United States. It was the oldest, is the oldest distributor in the United States, out of Galveston. And starting off in just a advanced sales role. And within a year and a half, a key account manager job opened up, and got hired on with that. And it was just a specialized team that we had 17 counties in kind of South and Central Texas. And kind of like you were talking about, where we concentrated on, 40% of our business makes up 80% of our sales, and went into those accounts. And yeah, there were some independents in there. And then after about 2 years, they kind of brought it down to just being, we're only going to focus on key account, the chain accounts, and kind of change our title to category consultants. And like I mentioned to Alan, I had the biggest of the company, which would be HEB, obviously, and the Stripes, which is one of the biggest convenience store outlets in the United States, and a handful of other decent accounts. And that's what we did. And then in kind of typical, and I moved to Sugar Land, Texas, to be a little more centrally located because I was having to drive to Beaumont and Galveston when I was living in Victoria, Texas. I don't know if you guys know of any of these towns.
Yeah, we do.
So anyway, so was up there for a while, and kind of typical Anheuser-Busch fashion, they kind of decided to restructure the company, and they wanted me to come back down to Victoria and run a sales team. And I had kind of just gotten used to being in Sugar Land, bought a house and all that. And I said, well, I appreciate the offer, but I think I will look for something else while I'm up here. And then I started doing some work with a relative of mine that we had a national contract with Walmart stores. We went in and did fire restoration, mold remediation, water damage, and we'd go and send a team or send a guy like myself and estimate damage and go back and then send a team and do all the work. Well, we did a job up in Massachusetts, and I ended up staying up there for a few weeks. And then, why most men usually move is either a job or a woman, and it was kind of the latter. So I ended up living up there for almost 3 years, and I eventually got married, and then I just decided, this just wasn't for me. I had to get back to Texas. And I did some stuff like commercial estimating while I was up there. So I moved back. And when I moved back, a good buddy of mine was VP of sales for Brenham Wholesale, which you'll see on our resume. Actually one of my best friends, and he's like, man, you gotta come work for me. And he was a guy that I had worked with in the beverage business. Worked for, I know you guys are familiar with Glazer, pretty big company, South Texas. We're really all over. And he went over there and he said, hey, it's a great company, you gotta come to work for us. And so I did, and that was in 2010. And it was in a similar type role that you guys are looking for, where you have an established account base, but yet I didn't have so much of an established account base. I think I started off with maybe 4 to 10 accounts.
Pretty
and
small.
Wanted to build it to a commissionable territory. And basically that's what it was. You know, you would call on your existing customers, and then you were going in and you were cold calling, you know, going in and trying to gain new customers. And basically my territory was San Antonio surrounding, down south as far as Gatula, and far west is like Uvalde, and then the Gulf Coast, and up in Victoria. And anyway, I averaged about 45,000 miles a year doing that.
Wow.
Yeah. And you know, it wasn't that bad, but when I first got hired on there, they had 12 reps, and then the oil field started booming, and then it cut off, and then the number of reps started getting let go, and I was actually, the company Brenham Wholesale is mainly owned by one family. It's a shareholder company, but they own the majority of the shares. And brought in a new CEO, and he started hiring a lot more family members. And next thing you know, I'm the low man on the totem pole at 6 years. All the other reps are the Ahlers, that
they're all
the
family
that own the company. And because of the reduction in oil field, that was a lot of our business, you know, because our sales were booming. I mean, you could sell a icicle to an Eskimo when the oil field was booming, you know? And then when it cut off, it kind of cut everything down. And the fact that their customer base is becoming more and more, and I'm going to be politically correct when I say this, is your new Americans, you know? The people that, I mean, we serviced everything from institutional facilities to restaurants to meat markets to convenience stores to grocery stores to you name it. Everything that wasn't DSD, and I don't know if you guys are familiar with DSD, but it's direct sale delivery, like a Coke, Miller, Frito-Lay, yada, yada, yada. They sourced out all those items from Brenham Wholesale. But more and more, you know, especially down in the Eagle Ford Show area, there's a lot of people that were, you know, had land and they were making money and yada, 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 and they just wanted to get out of the business. So usually the first buyers were these new Americans that were getting tax breaks from the government. You know, they just wanted to get out of the business. So more and more of our customer base was becoming that. And at the same time, urban markets like San Antonio and Houston and Dallas and Austin, they were opening up their own wholesalers or cash and carries, where they were sourcing out their items from their people. And so it was harder and harder for that business. And, you know, from the get-go, I kept trying to tell them, well, we have to get into the chain account market if this wholesalership is going to survive. And eventually, we kind of somewhat did. I started off with a guy that had they had an annual trade show in San Marcos every year, and it started off where I knew this guy had owned some stores, and I really wanted to get the guy in with us. So, you know, I invited him to the trade show as a non-customer, and he was very impressed. And he said, well, you know, we'll start off with one of my accounts in Dilley and Gatula, and then we'll go from there. We start off with 2 accounts, and then within 2.5, 3 years, he was our largest customer. Made up, like you said, like your whole Caterpillar. It was pretty much when I left Brenham, it was getting to the point where they had to have one rep calling on that guy, because he went from 2 stores to 25, 30 in San Antonio area to buying 25 in the Lufkin area, and he was a big customer. But like I said, going back just as a general overview, sales experiences for over 20 years. I was fortunate enough when I worked for the Anheuser-Busch wholesaler, and then you don't see it because it doesn't go that far back on them, that they were kind enough to send me to a lot of continuing education type things. Microsoft Word, Excel, PowerPoint, negotiations training, to advanced selling skills, to what I was really fortunate enough to attend and graduate from was a leadership kind of program called back then it was called Discover You Leadership Program. Now I think it's just Discover Leadership. But basically I'm a master grad from that, and what it does is it touches on the 7 characteristics of a leader, you know, how you present yourself, and a lot into that, you know, public speaking, and it helped me a lot at the time because going into the deal with a guy like Rusty Woodland that's a buyer for HEB, that you know how big those guys are, you know, going in and sit down with the guy, doing business reviews, looking at his overall business to overall category management, you know, from setting up cooler schematics on the software that we use, and I did that as well. It designed the planograms, cooler schematics, and basically that's a lot of what I did back then, is because we would take sales data, dump them into this software program. I could keep talking. I don't want to waste too much time.
No, you did good.
I have no problem talking, so that's why this water comes in handy.
Good. Well, it sounds like from what you described and looking at your resume, route experience, you've got that down.
Yes, sir.
It sounds like cold calling, you've done a lot of relationship development. Key things to the kind of sales that we're talking about, because as a territory manager, you've got a geographic area. Now, in that area, where do you want to spend your time? Well, you don't know until you start digging. And as soon as you start digging, you find out where those veins of gold are, and you realize, you know, I'm going to dig along here more often, weekly. Or you find a vein of copper, and it's like, every other week or every 3 weeks, that kind of a thing. So, recognizing, finding, and then prioritizing your customer base is task number 1. Now, luckily, the areas we're talking about, we've had sales reps in before that haven't been necessarily a good fit for the company, but they've done a lot of the digging.
Yeah.
And so you'd be stepping into some qualified leads, and they're ready to be developed. They're ready to be grown. What we just need to do is we need to find the right fit for Cobalt. So one of our objectives, besides getting to know you, is to help you understand Cobalt and the culture here and what we're looking for. We start at 7 in the morning. We finish at 5 in the afternoon. You do the math on that, that's a 50-hour work week. But we also know that during the day, one of the best uses of a sales rep's time is to take that customer he's trying to develop a relationship with to lunch. And very rarely can you do a good lunch meeting in under an hour.
Yeah. And it's what I did at Anheuser-Busch. I mean, it was nice to have a ranch in the hill country and a 63-foot Hatteras on the Gulf Coast, and, you know, going out fishing or whatever, but yeah.
Can you still get into those? Just kidding. Because if you can, that's golden. No, just kidding. But when you find a key account, our executive management is all about taking care of the customer. Right. We got to build to that point. And so it's a 10-hour day, 9-hour day, but there's an hour and a half to take that customer to lunch, to get to know them. Stop and pick up some donuts, take them over to a service manager and his crew that you're trying to develop a relationship with. That's all part of it. Yes. The company provides a company credit card after an initial period. Then we'll also do mileage reimbursements for the vehicle. We'll do a company laptop, an iPhone. If you have to travel away from your home area, to do sales calls, there's a hotel allowance, meal expense during your travel. So all that is considered into it. But Cobalt at its core is a old school, let's get it done, let's roll up our sleeves, because we're dealing with blue collar folk.
Yeah.
This isn't IT and finances. This is dirt and diesel fuel. So That's the kind of approach that we need to take, is to understand the product inside and out, to be a consultant to our customer, to help them avoid pitfalls of cheap products.
Right.
And if we can do that and do it on a regular basis, we can build it so that they're going to get into a rhythm and a schedule where they constantly send business our way.
And that's why I asked you about like the service end of it, is because I think service goes a long way. You know, I mean, you don't have to be the cheapest out there. You just have to be the most reliable. And I think service is the key to that. So,
good.
My opinion.
Yeah. Oh, it's a very important part of it. Absolutely. Well, now to kind of get your ideas, we got a whole bunch of questions. We're going to just take turns going back and forth asking you.
Yes, sir.
So just, and if when you're answering these questions, if it brings a question up in your mind, feel free to ask.
Okay.
All right. So first off, how do you keep up to date on your target market?
With my target market?
Yeah.
I learned a long time ago that pre-planning is key. Before you going out in the day is to set an objective. Okay. What I learned in Discover Leadership was they had this saying called WAFO, which is what are you focused on? Okay. So pre-planning is big because you can have a list of stops and get out there, but if you don't know what you're asking for or what they need, then you're kind of dead in the water. So lots of times pre-planning for me starts at the end of the previous day. So, you know, what are my goals for tomorrow? Who do I need to see? What do I need to do? And a lot of that also has to understand with the understanding of, you know, what are the company's goals right now too. So, kind of going back to what you and I talked about, knowing who the big hitters are, but also not forgetting about the little guys. So, hey, yeah, we want to go and take this guy that might have a lot of potential and take him to lunch, or and just making the time to do that. So, I guess answering your question in a nutshell, with targeting customers, it really goes back to pre-planning, and a lot of it's going to come from just me learning from you guys. You know, who our customer base is and who do we need to focus on or target. I hope that answers your question.
Yeah, perfect. Good.
Okay, now this is a little more out of the box type of a question. It's obviously something that you're comfortable with. I just want you to explain something to me, something that you're familiar with or you're expert at. Explain it to me.
Not professionally related?
Anything.
Okay, well, I'm a gun nut. Okay, I work on guns. I build guns.
Okay.
And I guess it goes. And I'm also one of those guys that researches everything. I do a lot of woodwork too, so it goes back to that old saying, you know, measure twice, cut once type of deal. Mm-hmm. And that's what I do as far as learning my hobby. It goes back to research, you know. And even when I think I'm ready to decide, I research it some more. And YouTube is awesome.
Right.
Because if there's something I don't understand, I'll watch it, even though I may not find the right video, I get the right kind of idea behind it. So learning that, which has only been over the last 4 or 5 years, I've kind of always been an outdoor guy, but I never really got into the technical aspect of, hey, I don't want to take my firearm into a guy and him charge me 80% more than what the work was worth. So
right.
I'm kind of like that. And that goes into everything from purchases from whatever, whether it be golf equipment or equipment for at the house, my shop, or working with wood and stuff, you know. So I guess to answer your question as far as perfecting it is just really taking a step back, mm-hmm. or getting out of the box, like you said, and looking at it and going about it slowly until I kind of get the hang of it. Mm-hmm. Never trying to rush anything. Nothing ever comes good of rushing something.
Okay.
Good. Did that answer your question?
Yes.
Okay.
In Well, it could be your last position or your last few positions. How much time did you spend cultivating customer relationships versus hunting for new customers?
It was usually about an 80-20 mix, but it also depended on goals.
So only 20% hunting, 80% servicing?
Well, towards the latter part, yes. When it first started, no. It was more like the complete opposite of that.
Okay.
Because the customer base was a lot smaller. So I guess that would depend on what I'm working with and, you know, what our company goals are, because it kind of goes back to, and I keep referring to a short conversation we had, but, you know, you can go and call on anybody, but are they realistically potential customers? You know, and you don't want to waste a bunch of time on somebody that's just wasting your time. You know, if you think that the potential is there for him to become a customer, yes, I'm going to spend a little more time with him. But towards the latter part, it was more of a 80-20, 70-30 mix, because the goal was to, and this is just referring to that company, was to pull in good, consistent customers. And I'll give you an example. Is we started doing, I don't want to say we, they started doing deposits, because we just didn't want to go in and send all these guys in to set up the business, from the backdoor systems to the equipment to the tagging of the stores and getting everything lined up, if they only wanted that done and they weren't going to be ordering from us. So we started implementing a deposit to kind of deter them from doing that. So it wasn't so much about how many customers you could get in, it was how many quality customers you could get in that were actually going to be there long term. So I guess answering that would be knowing this particular business and what we would, and if I was working
right
as Cobalt was looking for, because like you said, you can go and call on United Rentals, but since they're in 42 states and you guys are within 5, maybe it wouldn't be, but there's nothing wrong with testing the waters and seeing if there's some potential there.
Right. Excellent.
Okay. What are some of your favorite questions to ask prospects?
It's what are they looking for? What do they want out of? If I'm as a Cobalt rep, I would want to know what they wanted out of the equipment. I keep going back to our short little conversation, but it's like you said, how far do they need to boom out and what kind of weight? But I guess it would be, what do they need out of the equipment? What kind of time frame they're looking for? What kind of service are they looking for? And who have they used in the past? I think is a big thing, because if you don't know what they've done in the past, then it's kind of hard to go in and just talk all about yourself if you don't know who they've used or who they've bought from in the past. I think that's probably the biggest question, because if you don't know what you're dealing with, it's kind of hard to go in. You don't want to go in and look uneducated.
Right. What's your approach to handling customer objections? I mean, when they say no, or I don't have the budget, or...
Yeah, no doesn't always mean no, it means maybe to me, or not right now, is what I've always learned, is not right now. Because being in sales, you know that you're going to get no all the time. Rejection is not that bad, because you learn to deal with it, and you learn how to combat it and come back to that customer. Like I said, no doesn't always mean no, but if you're told no, or get out, I don't need to talk to you, handle it like you don't want to burn any bridges, and say, you know what, I understand. Here's my card, here's my number, here's my email. If you change your mind, I'd be more than happy to have your business or to help take care of you. So I don't know. Yeah, don't even know any other way to answer that question besides that.
Okay. What role does social media have in play in your selling process?
Bigger and bigger every day. Because I think that's one of the first things people look at these days. Other than, what you're selling, they're looking at brochures or whatever, but they kind of want to know what's going on with the company. Am I dealing with a good company? Am I dealing with professional individuals? Is that somebody that I want to have a partnership with? And I think that's what sales is about, is building partnerships. I always have this saying is that I want to be the preferred partner.
Right.
When they think, hey, I need some new equipment, I want them to think Cobalt. So basically, I want them to, when first thought that comes into their mind is, I'm going to give Cobalt a shot.
Right.
I want to be that preferred business partner.
Right. Okay.
Good. So now, when it comes to social media, there's a word called content.
Mm-hmm.
A lot of people don't even understand what that word means in the context of social media. What do you understand it to mean, and how would that fit in the selling process?
As far as social media goes, is some people put too much content out there. It's kind of one of those TMI, too much information. Mm-hmm. I think as far as social media goes, I think people go to look at, are you referring to an individual or a business?
Yeah, a business. But a business is run by individuals, so.
Right. I guess that's.
You said you love YouTube.
Yeah.
If you were a fleet buyer, would you use YouTube?
If I was a what buyer?
If you were a fleet manager for
manager.
for a company, would you use YouTube?
Sure.
For what?
Learn about competition. I mean, it's out there.
Okay.
If I'm researching something that I'm going to use, I'm thinking about one particular product, more than likely it's probably being compared to something else. So I think, yeah, as far as content there goes, that would be key. And knowing people these days don't have the time that they did 20, 30 years ago. So they, in reference to watching a YouTube video, they want to get to the point. They want a lot of this. Let's get to the point and
right.
Tell me what I need to know. So I guess their content would be key. If you're researching, one of the new truck bodies, or you don't want to go in there and learn about the leather that's on the seats or what kind of radio that's in there. You want to learn what it does, what is the capacity, yada yada yada. So.
Gotcha. Good.
Right. Okay. Well, then, this kind of feeds into what you're just saying. So how do you research prospects before you go to a call or a meeting? And what information are you looking for?
As far as on a
call or prospect, or
I mean, it would go back to the same thing is maybe not so much social media. Yeah, you could use social media if they had it out there, but I mean, there's so many things on the internet that you can use these days as far as what type of business they're running, what are customer reviews. Mm-hmm. It's out there. Mm-hmm. And if you have any inquisitive skills whatsoever, you can find it. You can't find it, but you can pay money to find it.
Right. Okay.
So if you were hired for this position, or any sales position like what you have experience with, what's your plan for the first month?
Plan for the first month? Mm-hmm. Just learn, sit back, go in, kind of close my mouth and ask questions when I really need to, and just learn the business. one of the worst things that I ever encountered was like when I first started back in sales or something like that, and you were training somebody that went in that thought they knew everything, and they didn't. I mean, you can't learn like that. You can't. Going in with an open mind, not having the blinders on, which I mean, not going in like this, looking around you, understanding what's going on. So to me, knowledge would be key as far as the first month, and just trying to learn the business. Mm-hmm. Because if you don't learn it, then what are you doing out there?
Mm-hmm. Right. Good. Okay. Now, have you looked at our website and stuff?
Yes, I have a little bit. I looked over some brochures sitting there. And
now, and this is kind of not an easy question because you're not real familiar, but just do your best here. What do you think our company sales organization could do better?
Get more key accounts. I guess get the heavy hitters, Okay. It's one way to grow the business. Reputation. I honestly don't know you guys' reputation just because, just from what I, researched and stuff.
Right.
I'm only going to really get that from being out in the market when you start getting feedback from customers and saying,
right.
Well, here are the things that I like about Cobalt, but these are the things that I like about the competition. Mm-hmm. So, yeah, I guess that's about it.
Okay, good.
How would you approach a short sales cycle differently than a long sales cycle?
The good ones always are the hardest. I know that. Mm-hmm. They're the ones that you have to work on. Usually the short ones are short term. The money's not there like the big ones. But you never know when that's going to go into a better relationship, a better partnership. Mm-hmm. So, in a professional world, you don't want to say that everybody's equal because you and I both know that they're not.
That's right.
But then again, you build your reputation as a company as having them think or understand that, hey, Cobalt doesn't discriminate against, the mom and pop. So they take care of us too. So, and today with social media and not just that, but networking, hey, this mom and pop may have a connection to somebody that's bigger down the road. Mm-hmm. So networking and having that reference goes a long way. So it is what it is, and you just have to approach it with that in mind. So I think some of my favorite customers have always been the smaller guys, the quote unquote little guys, because they're not into that big corporate aspect, but like I said, you never know what it's going to grow into. Mm-hmm.
Okay. When do you stop pursuing a client?
As in, if I got a rejection or a no,
right?
I guess you don't ever stop pursuing it. You just it's not a focus anymore. You just leave your information out there. And but it doesn't hurt to revisit every once in a while if you have the time, time permitting. If you get a no, and I think down the road, hey, and that's happened to me before. 6 months to a year down the road, hey, I want to pop in and just say hello. Hey, how's everything going, or whatever, And but obviously, if it's not beneficial to you, then it's obviously not a priority. So I don't think you would ever really close the door, period.
Right. Mm-hmm. So how do you keep a smile on your face during a hard day after you get a lot of those rejections?
Goes back to what am I focused on? I want a career. Nothing ever came from quitting. My smiles these days comes from my family, my kids. Mm-hmm. No, and you have to work hard for what you got, what you get. That's how I keep a smile on my face.
Great.
Have you ever turned a prospect away, and if so, why?
Turned a prospect away, yes.
Okay.
Yes. But it was usually for something like financial reasons. If they can't become a customer, it's just that. They can't. But it was mainly because of financial reasons. Being in the beer business, you don't, because it's the law. As long as they have the permits and the license, the law states they have, within the jurisdiction, they have to buy from you,
right?
And they can't buy from anybody else. So that was never an issue,
right?
But lots of times it came down to financial issues, because a lot of what I did too, or some of what I did, was managing AR accounts, and I tried to set up most of my accounts at that time in a direct draft, what they call EFT or an ACH. So you didn't usually have the problems, but some of the older customers or ones that were on a 7-day terms or something like that, or they just got to where they just weren't paying, then you turn them away then. But that's the obvious. So.
Right. Okay.
So have you ever had a losing streak?
A losing streak.
And how did you turn it around? Let's phrase that. It was baseball started this week. I always in the evenings in the hotel, I'm watching the commentators talk about the players and the game and stuff. I don't think there's any more superstitious group of athletes than baseball players.
Yeah.
And boy, when they go on down streaks, it's bad. And then they have great streaks where they're hitting everything. I don't understand what the difference is.
No, I know. I totally understand what you're saying. Going back to baseball, I'm an Astros fan. So watching the opening day yesterday, and they were talking about third baseman Alex Bregman. And when they called him up last year, he went 1 for 32. Oof. But then he just caught fire and was one of the hottest guys. And always played good defense. But I think it goes back to just keep chugging away at it and never getting down. I honestly can't think of a long losing streak but there were times that you think, God, I need to turn this around a little bit, and it was just keep working at it. It's like me, I guess I told you before, I'm a hunter. I don't go out and shoot something every time I go out, Sometimes you sit there and you go, what the heck am I doing sitting in this stand? It's 30 degrees and I'm not seeing anything, but if you're not putting in the time, you're not going to be successful. So I guess that would be the best way I could answer that question.
Good.
Have you ever asked a prospect who didn't buy from you why? Yeah. And what did they say, and what did you learn from the experience?
That's usually the first thing I would ask is why? What is it that we don't offer to you that you're looking for? And that's usually when I go back to the sales manager or powers that be. They want to know why, and it's going back and telling them, hey, pricing, and they don't like the turnaround.